Hello and welcome. If the daily news feels completely overwhelming sometimes, what if I told you it might all be part of a bigger plan? Today, we're going to explore a pretty radical perspective. The idea that all the chaos we're seeing isn't random at all, but is actually a kind of planned demolition show designed to clear the way for something brand new. So let's dive in and see how this way of thinking might just turn that anxiety into real understanding.
I mean, think about it. You turn on the news, you're watching conflicts unfold, or seeing these huge political shifts on the horizon. It's so easy to feel a sense of anxiety about where we're all headed, right? But what if there's a different way to see it all? The perspective we're exploring today, it's a really powerful tool for reframing that anxiety and maybe, just maybe, finding a sense of purpose right in the middle of all the chaos.
So let's just ask that question. What if everything we're witnessing, all the disruption, all the disorder, isn't the tragedy it looks like on the surface? What if there's a completely different story playing out, one with a very, very different ending?
What if it's actually a planned demolition show? That's the core idea we're looking at. The incredible upheaval we see isn't a sign that everything's just randomly falling apart. No, it's a necessary and scheduled clearing of the old to make way for the new. And by the end of our time here, you'll have a whole new lens to view the headlines through, and hopefully a much clearer idea of how you can navigate this time with a lot more peace.
Okay, so from this point of view, humanity is standing at one of the biggest turning points in its entire history. And to really get it, think about this. When you want to build a beautiful, shiny new skyscraper, what's the first thing you have to do? You've got to demolish the old, outdated building that's sitting on that spot, right? You bring in the dynamite, the heavy machinery. Well, that is the perfect analogy for what's happening on a global scale right now.
So here we have this tale of two worlds. For literally thousands of years, we've lived in what this framework calls the old 3D world, a reality built on separation, on hierarchy, and control. You can see it in those pyramid-shaped power structures, controlled through money, all the division from borders. That's the old building that's being demolished. And the new skyscraper? That's what's called the new 5D Earth, which is just a term for a higher state of consciousness, one that's founded on unity, peace, and self-reliance. But to build that, the old 3D foundation has to be totally cleared away first.
And the crucial point here is that none of this is seen as random. It's a process. Step one is the demolition itself. All those global events we see are like shock therapy, meant to break down the old systems. Now, step two, which is pretty much where we are now, is clearing the rubble. It looks messy, it looks confusing, but it's a totally necessary phase. And all of this is just to get to step three, laying a brand new foundation on that cleared ground.
So this brings up a really fascinating question, doesn't it? What about all the controversial leaders and nations that seem to be causing all this disruption? If this really is a planned demolition, what part are they playing in this whole grand scenario?
Now this is a huge shift in perspective. You see, looking at these figures through the old lens of good versus evil is a very 3D way of thinking. But from this higher, cosmic viewpoint, it's not about their moral alignment. That's not the point. It's about their function. They are the demolition crew, hired to take down a structure that just doesn't serve humanity's evolution anymore.
And this explains their role perfectly. They act as catalysts. By shaking up old alliances, disrupting economies, and just defying convention, they're basically serving as negative role models. Their actions are forcing us, all of us, to wake up and realize that the age of depending on these external systems, well, it's over. They're pushing a collective move towards self-reliance.
Okay, so if all of this is a grand demolition show, what's your role? How are you supposed to watch it? This might just be the most important part of this whole thing, because how you experience this transition, it's entirely up to you. So there's one thing you really might want to avoid when you watch the news, and that is getting emotionally swept up in all the fear and anger that's being broadcast 24/7. Because when you sync up with that negativity, it just drains your energy and pulls your focus right down into the dust and chaos of the demolition itself, and it stops you from seeing that bigger picture. So the invitation here is to just take a step back, kind of like you're watching a movie, to be a detached, calm observer. You could see a crazy headline and just think to yourself, look at that. The demolition of the old world is proceeding right on schedule. All that old rot is being cleared out. This allows you to see it not as some awful tragedy, but as a necessary and ultimately positive cleansing.
So let's make this real for a second. Think about the news you've seen just this week. What emotions did it stir up in you? Fear? Anger? Maybe helplessness?
What feelings do you now realize you could consciously let go of so you can maintain that calm observer status?
Now, as we start to wrap this up, it's really important to know that, just like with any demolition, things might seem to get even more intense before the site is finally clear. But from this perspective, there is absolutely no reason to fear this final phase.
You know that timeless saying that captures this perfectly: the darkest hour is just before the dawn. So if the chaos on the surface seems to be hitting a peak, this perspective suggests we should understand it for what it is. It's not the end. It is the final, intense burst of activity right before the birth of a whole new era.
And this leaves us with the ultimate takeaway. No matter how much the world outside seems to shake, the suggestion is to not let go of your inner peace. Your calm, stable presence isn't just a passive act. It's actually a way to add a stabilizing energy to a really chaotic time. By holding a state of peace, you aren't just protecting yourself, you are actively contributing to the calm foundation on which the new world can be built. In that sense, your peace becomes your power, and it's your greatest contribution.